My name is Jeff Parrish, also known as Jefe. Es un chiste porque no soy jefe de nada. I'm not the boss of anything. But my role is I'm the vice president for conservation ventures at WWF. So I work on some of our biggest and most exciting new initiatives that can change the world. Today was pretty historic and represents actually not really just 3 years of dialogue between WWF and the Adventure Travel Trade Association, but really represents 10 years of this trade moving in the direction of not just sustainable travel, but conservation travel, and giving back and protecting the resource that is really the beating heart of the economy of adventure travel. So today we signed an MOU. It's just an agreement really that says we are going to work together. We have to work together if we are going to affect the change we want to see on the planet, the positive change, but also if we're going to be able to do that in a way that profits people as well, both not just the owner and operators, but also the local communities that live that live with wildlife. Behind the idea of conservation travel is simply the 3 I's. Easy way to remember them, but a framework is really important so that we can all check back on it and see how we're doing against it. It is impact, or incentivizing conservation impact. Influencing, such as influencing the traveler to engage in conservation. And investment. How do we help to fund and support these conservation priorities that are both important to the future of life on Earth, as well as the future of this industry? So the impact, influence, and invest. And within those 3 categories, the sky is the limit in terms of the sorts of practices or actions that people might take. It's really only limited by our own creativity and innovation. What are the creative ways we can influence the traveler before they go on their journey or afterwards? What are cool ways that we can take a dollar that's in the supply chain of adventure travel and get it to those conservation priorities that are going to be most benefiting the industry in return, or ask the traveler themselves to use that moment of inspiration to put a little extra towards the future of that place or species that they just got to see. So those 3 I's are the backbone of this agreement between ATTA and WWF. We hope it's going to be the backbone behind what a lot of the tour operators and all folks in the industry are thinking about in terms of how they can move the needle on conservation. And it's going to be how we sort of measure ourselves going forward in terms of did this relationship make a difference? Conservation and travel has an interesting relationship, probably in many ways, speaking more broadly than adventure travel. It's kind of like a sibling relationship in some ways. Sometimes it's one of, they're your best friends, and sometimes you get into a solid argument. I say that because there are certainly parts of tourism writ large that have actually posed extraordinary threats to the future of nature. Just go to a place that has been overrun by mass tourism, where the resource has been depleted. That's not the kind of tourism that is good for nature, and it's not the kind of tourism that the adventure travel industry really wants to see. That's not who we are in this industry. So many of my colleagues in conservation look at tourism and they immediately think threat, whereas those of us who really know the DNA of the adventure travel industry know that it is the exact polar opposite. It is not a threat, but a tool for conservation, an opportunity for showing how people live in harmony with nature. And so it's an interesting relationship when you talk about tourism more broadly, but when it comes to adventure travel and conservation, there couldn't be a better match. And the DNA of the operators and members of ATTA is really the same DNA as those folks who have a panda on their business card or work in conservation. And so it was only natural that we saw a chance to come together. And WWF is an organization that works quite closely with the private sector. We understand what good business means. We try to talk on those terms as well. That also led us to be able to think along the same lines as many of the operators, whether they're the big players or a mom and pop shop, that we all have this same interest in protecting the planet and making sure that there's a profit for the business and for local communities at the same time. It's going to take time. It's like trying to reverse unsustainable practices in any industry. And the adventure travel industry does have to deal with the perception by many that it is the same as all other tourism. And that's not true. We know that. We know that we actually have goals in the adventure travel industry to change the way the broader tourism industry thinks about resource use. We in WWF face this exact same challenge. There are parts of WWF's very broad network, which is a huge strength of ours, that we work in 100 countries and we have significant footprints of offices and staff in many of the source countries for travelers, as well as many of the destination countries. Many of those have had a different opinion about tourism because they immediately equate it with a threat. And so we struggle with that too. And that's why WWF US, who has been the most engaged in this conversation, is working really hard to better educate our own internal populace around there's a difference between tourism and adventure travel. And so I think for us, the most important way to shift that mindset is to just show results. And if we can tell stories about how adventure travel and adventure travel operators, people like Praveen, are taking dollars from their business or from their inspired traveler and putting it back into communities and into conservation, showing how that works, I think the results will speak will change minds far quicker and far more in a more durable way. We've seen it already happen in Namibia. That's the only reason why we actually have a lot of WWF US staff really excited about this, because they've seen what can work. And so I think we roll up our sleeves, we start showing what this partnership can really deliver, and I think results quickly will be really important for us to change that trajectory.